In the last two videos, we covered what an API is and how AI APIs work, but there's one more piece to the puzzle, and it's the one that explains where most of the internet data actually comes from. Because here's the thing, AI models need data to learn from. Price comparison sites need product data, hedge funds need marketing signals, and even news aggregators need articles. All of that data has to come from somewhere. And almost every time, the answer is either an API or web scraping, or increasingly, both at once. I'm Dovydas from Oxylabs, and in this video, we're going to break down how APIs and web scraping relate to each other, where the line between them disappears, and what a web scraping API actually is. Let's say you want to collect every product price from an online store every morning automatically. You have two options. Option A, the store provides an official API. You sign up, get an API key, call something like get/products every morning, and clean structured data comes right back. Easy. Option B, the store has no API or their API doesn't include what you need. So instead, you write a program that visits the website the way a human would, downloads each page's HTML, and pulls the prices out of the raw code. That is web scraping. If we return to our classic restaurant analogy, the official API is like ordering through the waiter. You ask for a menu and they hand you the exact list of what you can order. Web scraping is like walking into the kitchen yourself, looking at the stove and writing down what you see. You may get more information about the ingredients, but the notes may be messier and the kitchen could rearrange itself tomorrow. So when do you use one versus the other? The rule most engineers follow is simple. Use the official API whenever one exists. The data comes back clean and structured, the provider promises it will keep working, and you're explicitly allowed to use it. On the other hand, scraping is the next logical step when there is no API, or when the API doesn't give you what you actually need. Scraping can get you anything visible on the page, but the trade-offs may be required in some cases. All that said, scraping isn't wrong by any means. It's a tool, though it comes with more engineering resource costs and the legal line can sometimes get a little gray. Which brings us to the next part. Is web scraping legal? The short answer, it depends. But here's the version that actually covers everything you need. Scraping publicly available data, the stuff anyone can see without logging in, is generally legal in the US, UK, and EU. There is no law that flat out bans it. What gets people in trouble is what they do with the data after. Things like republishing copyrighted content, mishandling personal data under GDPR, or violating a site's terms of service. That last one can get your account banned, and in edge cases, lead to a civil case. Finally, bypassing logins, CAPTCHAs, or paywalls is where things get into a dark zone you should stay away from, since that can cross into fraud territory. So, the practical rule of thumb is to always check for an official API first. It's faster, more reliable, and highly encouraged. Scraping is usually the fallback, not the default. However, this is the part where it gets interesting. Web scraping used to be something you did yourself entirely. Write a script, manage your own proxies, handle CAPTCHAs, deal with bot detection. For serious data collection, it was basically a part-time job on top of your actual data-related task. This is why an entire industry emerged that wraps web scraping inside an API. Oxylabs Web Scraper API is a good example of this. You make one call and it handles all the messy parts for you. Rotating IP addresses so you don't get timeouts, mimicking a real browser, solving bot challenges, rendering JavaScript that a plain HTTP request would miss entirely. All of that is handled by a single tool. The call itself looks just like any other API call you've seen in the series. You send a URL, you get back clean, structured data. Say the target site never had an API, but you got the data anyway through one that does. That's the merge, and that is why web scraping API is one of the fastest growing categories of developer tools right now. So let's say you have everything set up. What happens next? Here is how a real data collection pipeline looks from end to end. Step 1. you identify a target. A product page, a listing site, a job board, whatever data you need. Step 2. Your scraping API call goes out. The service handles proxies, browser rendering, and bot challenges on your behalf. Step 3. Raw data comes back. HTML, JSON, or structured fields, depending on the service and how you set up the call. With step 4, we start processing the data, which is parsing and cleaning. You pick out the fields you need, strip out the ones you don't. Step 5, you store it. A database, a spreadsheet, a data warehouse, wherever it needs to be. And finally, step 6, using it. Feed it into anything that requires the data, be it specific dashboard or LLM agent. Every data-driven product you use, such as price comparison extensions, job boards, travel aggregators, investment research tools, actually runs some version of this pipeline. The API is just the first link in the chain. To be more exact, you've likely touched products built on this pipeline, maybe even today. Here are a few practical examples of web scraping APIs used in action. When you check Google Flights or Kayak, those sites are constantly pulling price and seat availability from hundreds of airlines through a mix of official APIs and scraping. When a browser extension alerts you that a price dropped on something you're watching, that's a scraper checking product pages on a schedule. When you look up salary data on Glassdoor or job market trends on LinkedIn, that's aggregated from postings scraped across the web. And the AI models that we talked about in the last video, most of them were trained on massive amounts of text data that was originally scraped from the open web. For instance, even modern LLMs who access data online are built on RAG workflows. They use web scraping APIs to improve their responses with live data and return their answers through their AI APIs. So in this case, APIs are essentially on both ends of the pipeline. You can learn more about RAG in our video linked below. So let's lock in what we covered. First, APIs and web scraping are two different ways to get data from the web. Use the API when one exists, scrape when it doesn't, or when it doesn't give you what you need. Second, scraping publicly visible data is generally legal. What you do with it and how you get it is what creates or lowers any risk. Third, web scraping APIs are the most advanced form of modern scraping. One API call and the service handles proxies, bot challenges, and browser rendering for you. Fourth, almost every data-driven product you use, a price tracker, travel aggregator, and AI model, is powered by some version of a scraping pipeline. And fifth, APIs are often on both ends. They collect the data and they deliver the intelligence built from it. So you have started this series not knowing what an API was. Now you know what they are, how AI APIs power the tools you use every day, and how they sit at the heart of the entire data collection economy. If you want to learn more, check out our blog for in-depth scraping tutorials and step-by-step guides. The link is in the description. And if you have questions, reach out to us through support@oxylabs.io or use the live chat on our homepage. If you enjoyed this series, hit the like and subscribe to catch more videos like this one. Thanks for watching and see you next time.